Hi everyone, my name is Emily and I'm a youth services librarian at the Rock Island Public Library, and this month's Manga Monday title is Yokohama, Kaidashi, Kikou. And in this book, which is it's a deluxe edition, I ordered these earlier this year, and the idea is it's sort of like a 2-in-1, I think, because you get the first 24 chapters of this manga, and it is about a woman named Alpha. Rather though, she is an android. And she has a cafe, it's called Cafe Alpha, and eventually we get into the fact that, Alpha is literally an alpha model, but there weren't a lot of those made, so she goes by the personal name Alpha. Like, she just kind of kept that as her name, because as the story goes on, she meets another android, and she has chosen the name Kokone. So, as we get to know these two, here's Alpha, there's Kokone. What we find is Alpha has become a part of her seaside community. And so there's like the man she calls Uncle, he runs the gas station, and his grandson, Takahiro, will stop by sometimes. Like, Alpha doesn't have a ton of customers because her cafe is kind of in the middle of nowhere. And this is taking place in a future where some kind of environmental disaster has happened. And so at one point near the end of the book, Alpha actually visits a spot that she visited with her owner many years before. And they can see, this is Alpha and her friend the doctor, and these two are looking out over where the sea has risen. Like, the water level has risen to the point that there's basically this whole city that's underwater. Like, some of the lights you can see, there's probably still people living in these foothills, but before this flooded, everybody had to leave. But the street lights still come on. Like, after all these years, there are still these lights that come on every night. And so it's this weird feeling of, Alpha is living in this world where she is not immortal exactly, but she ages much more slowly than humans do. And one thing you see in the back, this is a gift eventually her owner, who is absent, sends her. It's a camera. And the whole idea is, okay, you can remember things probably better than a human, but at some point there's going to be things you want to remember that you don't want to forget, and so this will help. You can take photos, because the place where you live now, the people there, it's not always going to be the same. And this is an interesting manga because you have these odd sorts of, it's all kinds of different genres blended. Like, yes, you have the sci-fi of an android, and you have these beautiful scenes of the place where Alpha calls home, but you also have, here's her just like playing the moon guitar for Uncle and Takahiro. And there are scenes like that. But then there is this supernatural creature called the Osprey, who is this odd, like, female-shaped creature, but she's also immortal, and she has fangs, and she doesn't appear to adults. Like, she'll only show herself to kids. You also have this water god. And the water god is interesting because it's literally a kid. And people see this and think, whoa, that looks so real. It looks like this person, like the statue, is alive. And people have to explain, yeah, that's the water god. She is alive. It looks like she's alive because she is. Like, we've checked, and you can measure brainwaves coming from this child. But she's been sitting there like a painting for many, many years. And so the locals kind of keep watch, they keep guard, and people bring her gifts. They treat her as like, oh, this is the local water god, and this is kind of a shrine. Although we didn't build a shrine around this person because we don't know what's causing her to not age. We don't know how this happened. So, like, don't get too close, don't touch this person, but we recognize that something supernatural is happening here, and we're going to respect it and pay her honor as best we can. So you get some, like, there are full color sections occasionally. This is Kokone and one of her friends. But you also have, throughout the book, like, there's the doctor and Uncle. Like, we meet them at one point when they're many years younger. Like, they're both getting on in years by the time we meet them in Alpha's part of the story. But years before, the two of them, we find that at one point, as the sea level was rising, like, they went to check out this road that had been closed, like, to ride it one last time. And of course, it was closed because it was all sand. Like, the sand had shifted and the wind had kind of changed the whole landscape pretty quickly. And of course, like, for Alpha, maybe things don't seem to happen that quickly. Like, she doesn't have a very clear sense of how long the person who owned her has been gone. And this person is still alive. Again, they sent her a gift. But we get into this, not in this first volume, but, I mean, Kokone, in becoming friends with Alpha, she recognizes that, oh, you know, I've lived around humans my whole life, and I kind of prided myself on seeming very human-like. But then she meets Alpha, and she recognizes, oh, okay, it's fine to just be myself, too. Like, the people around me, they're not, I mean, so far, they've not shown anything but kindness to me, and the fact, like, they know I'm an android. It's not like I'm pretending to be human so they'll keep being nice to me. Like, I'm just a part of my community the way Alpha is, and I have a job and she has a job, and maybe I don't need to, like, hide so much about who I am. And in discovering that she's very good at acting like a human, Kokone recognizes, okay, maybe I need to relax a little. And the advice she has for Alpha is, don't try too hard to relax, which is a little bit tricky because, I mean, by definition, it's like these are people, but they're not biological people the way that humans are. These are manufactured people. And given that they were manufactured to do jobs, I think it'll be interesting because I do want to read future volumes, which I should say future volumes. We already have the first 4 of these, and this series actually, I believe it was first published in 1995. So, been around for a bit, and it's predicting a future which could happen still, who's to say. But basically, I don't know exactly where it's going to go in terms of what kind of rights do these machine people have. Like, if you're an android in this world where the description on the back talks about, I mean, literally the tagline is, a quiet cup of coffee as the world winds down. And so Alpha, again, from the back, stands witness to the twilight of humanity with coffee, a slice of watermelon, and the sound of her moon guitar. And Alpha and her neighbors enjoy the melancholy beauty of life, even as the end approaches. And it's interesting because it's like, well, so far there hasn't really been any big event that suggests, oh, the end is going to be one big thing. Like, yes, there's been an environmental catastrophe to the point that people have had to move inland, in some cases kind of far, because Japan is an island. It's a nation of islands, and so people have had to find higher ground. But I will say, like, in the very last chapter, we meet a girl named Maki, and she is friends with Takahiro, and in the translation notes in the back, it explains the fact that Maki's full name is Matsuki, meaning true moon. Her nickname Maki could also mean end times, which seems significant. But again, there's nothing to say that this child is like the harbinger of doom. She's just a kid kind of growing up in this small seaside community. And they do things you might expect in a place like this, like there's fireworks. They celebrate the New Year. They even have like a neighborhood association. And for Alpha, I mean, it's important to have this community of people. You might think, oh, well, she's an android, and she doesn't really need, like, for example, she can't consume animal protein. Like, she can't drink milk, she can't eat meat. But, I mean, she needs people. For example, at one point she's out riding her scooter, gets caught in the rain, and gets struck by lightning. So that's how she first meets the doctor, because the doctor has to, like, replace her skin and her hair, because the whole idea is, hey, you're an android. Like, you getting struck by lightning, it's different than if it happened to a human. Like, you're gonna heal up pretty fast. You can leave the hospital in a few days as soon as, like, you get your new hair on and I make sure your new skin is okay. Like, it's all been applied evenly. So it's a really interesting, I would say, uplifting dystopian story, because there's a poetry collection I'm planning to read next year, and I believe the title is The World Keeps on Ending, and the World Keeps on Going. Because, I mean, for many people in all different times and places throughout human history, it's been the end of the world as they know it. And so in this one time and place, it's sort of like, well, what is this going to look like? Because the people in this story, they're still living their lives. Like, they're not talking as though, like, oh, the apocalypse is going to happen, like, next Wednesday, so we need to get ready. Like, no, they're just living their lives. And Alpha can drink coffee. She, at one point, reflects on the fact that she maybe drinks like 80% of the coffee that she buys for her cafe, because again, doesn't get that many customers. So, if you like manga and you're looking for kind of a different story, I would check this out. Again, it's taking place in the future, so even though it was written in the 90s, you don't really get a sense of, oh, this is back in time, although the technologies predicted in many cases don't exist yet, so you don't really have a sense of when this is happening. actually this is the camera, and the data for it, it looks like this sort of candy almost. And Alpha, being an android, she can literally like plug in the end of like this camera sensor to her mouth. Like she can almost just hold it here and be able to see what the camera sees, even if she closes her eyes. So it's an interesting book. I really like the art, in part because it is from the 90s, but the creator, Hitoshi Ashinano, has like a really distinct style. And it's really fun just to enjoy like these beautiful scenes. Even though they're in black and white, it's like you very much get the sense that Alpha is looking at this sunset, and she went out on this particular day to like go take photos. And she ended up not even being able to take a photo of this because it was so beautiful. And in the moment she was like, oh, I just want to look at this. I don't want to miss even a second of this. Maybe it's because it takes place by the ocean, but it definitely kind of has a late summer vibe to it. And I really enjoyed it. So if you're looking for something to read, finish up your summer reading, check this out. And thank you for watching. I will see you again soon.